Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the HR Congress podcast. My name is Ben Churchhouse, and today I have a very special guest, Claude Silver. Claude is an emotional optimist, coach, manager, and mentor. She is the first ever Chief Heart Officer and leads the people practices at VaynerMedia. Claude works for 800 humans and in touch with the heartbeat of every single person in the company. She has previously held senior positions in digital strategy, operations, and client services in multiple international locations for different organizations. And Claude will be joining us as a keynote speaker and masterclass leader at the HR Congress Nice this November. So her keynote presentation will be entitled Empathy Wins, Unlocking People Performance and Human Potential by Emotional Awareness. And her masterclass will be, well, it's more of an idea lab, I think is what we're calling it, but it's essentially a masterclass. Interactive dialogue session with Claude. In focus, empathy, emotional awareness, heart, and purpose. Thank you for joining me today, Claude. It's a real pleasure to have you with me.
Wonderful to meet you, Ben. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. It's an absolute honor. So I noticed in the past that you mentioned that you don't come specifically from an HR background, which is kind of good because I don't either. In what ways does this influence your role within VaynerMedia and the way that you approach your work?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. I don't come from HR. I actually studied a long time ago to become a psychotherapist and spent a lot of my years studying psychology and different modalities. So I've always really loved human behavior and I'm very curious about our potential and also what gets in our way, of course. And so I was in advertising agencies in the digital world for quite some time. I was always told I was an HR person's dream. Which of course was a compliment, but it was also something that I thought was a little bit of a deterrent because I believe that every single person needs to be interacted with and quote unquote touched, if you will, at any company they're in. And so being an HR person's dream basically told me that they were going to really never check in with me to see how I was doing. And the fact of the matter is we all need coaching. We all need to understand what is blocking us and find with help pathways through that. And so I really believe that my understanding of humans and my experience in digital advertising agencies, creative agencies, really has helped me see where people get stuck. And I have a passion for wanting to be helpful there. Now, that's not to say that HR today doesn't want to be helpful because obviously they do. However, I was never brought up in the art and skill of HR in terms of compliance and legalities and labor laws. And so my way in is really through the human. It's not through the science of HR.
Which is one of the, I guess, bigger emerging trends generally within HR of late, is this reinvigorated focus on the human aspects of it. It's funny to say, but it's almost being rediscovered in a sense. Not that it wasn't there in the past, but the focus has shifted, I think, a little bit more towards that. So one of the questions I wanted to ask is obviously working with Gary. He's got a very strong vision and quite a clear drive for where he wants the organization to go. How do you work with him, specifically a leader like him, to formulate a people strategy to guide the organization forward?
You know, the wonderful thing about working with Gary is he's not a micromanager. He says what he's envisioning at a very, very high level, and it's up to me and other leaders to execute upon that. So that gives me enormous amounts of runway and freedom to follow my own path and to really see what is needed on the floor, on the ground, to make sure that we're touching every single human being. The people strategy there is very simple. We want to make sure that the floor, the population, has an understanding of self-awareness, of what it's like to build trust, what it's like to grow empathy with one another, what it's like to be collaborators and transparent leaders. And so my job is really to figure out how to infuse that down through the line, and also really how to scale that, because that's the key. When you have 900 people, I can't touch 900 people in a day or in a year. So the beauty is empowering others to also be human first and people first. And that's really how we are able to go about, attacking the people strategy. And attacking, of course, isn't the word I want to use, but really, going after it and making sure that we are walking the walk, not just talking the talk. That's the most important thing.
I believe that you've mentioned previously that you have what's called the heart and hustle model that you use at VaynerMedia. Could you please explain what this model actually means, and why is it important to what you do at VaynerMedia?
Yeah. So actually, I would say that it's not quite heart and hustle, because I think hustle can have a negative connotation in terms of fast, maybe carelessness, maybe speed, and not really slowing down enough to do things correctly or give one enough time to really embody the role that they're in. So what we're really calling it is the honey empire, quite frankly. And the honey empire is, in fact, something like this. You lean in on people 100% because we are people over profit and we are kindness over KPI. However, you're still very focused on the empire, the building of the business, the actual ROI, the actual success of the financial side of the business, 99%. So there's just a 1% variable where we're really leaning forward on humans and making sure that everyone is feeling like they understand their role, their responsibility. They're given the tools to go forward. They're given the communication coaching to go forward, things like that. So while, I understand the word hustle, and I get heart and hustle, and it is something that I said about 3 years ago, it's much more honey empire. How can we lean in on the humans while making sure the business is having the ROI and the success that it also needs? So it's a win-win for everyone. And success can look, for me, on the people side, success is something like retention. That's very, very important, or making sure our employer brand is strong outside as much as it is inside. These are things that are very important for me to be looking at on a day-to-day basis. And for our CFO and everyone else, including myself, to be looking at, top line revenue, those types of things, and sustainability of client health.
Is it difficult to navigate that tension between being people-centric, empathetic, very people-focused, and yet also delivering results? Like, how do you functionally navigate that on a daily basis?
It isn't difficult because of the leaders that we've hired. That I can say, my hand on my heart, which is we have leaders that are coming from altruistic places, that are coming from wanting to turn their teammates and their teams into champions. And so we do our best to really, while we all have egos, of course, we're humans, to really try to subside the I factor and turn everything into a we factor. And so that we're all working for the logo of VaynerMedia first and foremost. And because that has come from Gary at the top, that is much easier to infuse throughout the organization because it is a mandate from Gary. We are a people first company. We have a chief heart officer. That chief heart officer is the second in command. It's, he's put that there. And so you can't really fight with that. When it comes to, I think he's actually been quoted saying 9 out of 10 times the heart, Claude's debate will win over finances. Because we are focused on the people first. And there's nuances there, of course. And there's also nuances to human beings. And so when we're looking at people, I'm not just looking for the 9 to 5:30 that they're there. A human being's day starts when the alarm clock goes off and drops their kids off at daycare or goes to the gym or gets on a conference call. And we want to take all of this into consideration when that person enters the actual office, that they've had a life. And some of that life could have been stressful or joyful or full of emotion. And so we're looking at the entire human being when we are looking at being people first.
So one of the common themes throughout both of your sessions at the HR Congress this year, and already what we've discussed, is empathy. Well, at the moment, I feel like there is a little bit of an empathy deficit in society generally. What does the holistic focus on empathy that you have for VaynerMedia, how is that manifested on a daily basis? What does that look like?
So that's a great question, because my firm belief is that without self-awareness or the desire to walk towards self-awareness, it's very difficult to find empathy, because they're kissing cousins for one another. In order to feel and in order to respect and respond to another, you must actually understand yourself to some degree, why you're feeling that way, why you can emote with that person, or why you are wanting to hold them if they are having a hard day. Why do you want to create psychological safety with them? So what that means is that we're teaching life skills constantly. And we're teaching that by actual teaching that, which I'll do in the masterclass that we have there. But we're also teaching that in terms of, again, the leaders and walking that walk and bringing in people that we believe are drinking from the same water fountain that we're drinking from, in terms of understanding how important it is to lean in on these quote unquote softer skills, which I don't use the term soft skills. I use life skills or necessary life skills. But again, we're hiring people and grooming people and spending a lot of time with people that we believe are the leaders tomorrow and leaders today, so that they can scale what we're talking about when it comes to emotional intelligence, empathy, authenticity, patience, respect, kindness. We are walking the walk, and I notice that I'm saying that a lot in this interview, but it is very true. You must be able to walk the walk and walk the talk. You can't just talk it, or else it falls very flat and it becomes sand, crumbles.
So on that point, when you're recruiting or onboarding new talent, new hires into the organization, what are the types of onboarding practices specifically that you are practices and or procedures, philosophies, whatever you want to call it, that are contributing to developing these leaders, as you call it, within the organization? What are some of your experiences with this?
So I'm very proud to say that we have a 4-day orientation for every single new hire. And that means if you are in the C-suite or you are a junior copywriter, you are in the same cohort and the same 4-day class as everyone. So right there, it flattens the organization, number one. Number two, everyone is in the 4 days, you are getting taught and shown our secret sauce by subject matter experts. So someone from the media team will come in and show you what it is we do when it comes to why we do media so well. Someone from the creative team will talk to you about content creation. I will talk about what the relationship of a CHO to the 800 people is, and why I renamed the team People and Experience Team rather than HR. You'll get someone from my culture team will talk to you about how we infuse culture, what are our guiding principles. So in those 4 days, you will be sitting with a group of people that will then be in your class. You are getting to know people from the organization, subject matter experts. You are going on buddy lunches with absolute strangers. So again, getting to know more people, because it is all about people and relationships. Skill sets, while very important because we've hired you for your specific skill sets are also commoditized. right? I can go out, I'm in London today, and I can hopefully find 5 different copywriters if I needed to. It's not, it's not that difficult. But can I find 5 copywriters that actually care about human beings and want to turn other people into champions by collaborating? That's the key. And so our interview practice and what we do in our interview training is really where this starts in terms of asking open-ended questions to really get an idea and hear from the candidates how they think about things. Are they coming from a place of we, not I? Are they open to talking about how they have fallen and failed and gotten back up? Are they open to discussing successes that they've had? And are we listening for how many times they mention team? Those types of things, So, so those are 2 ways in which we are really creating that foundation of bringing people in that have similar values and similar DNA that we have. Not identical, but similar.
What is something that surprises you every day at work?
Oh my gosh. What doesn't surprise me every day at work? I think that
Fair
that's
enough,
that. Yeah, that's the key. Gosh, humans are so complex, and myself included. And we at times spend so much of our energy spinning on things that really are not the most important things at VaynerMedia. Now, I can't speak to them in their life, right? So what I find, I think, over and over in terms of things that we can work on is how to give more frequent feedback to one another. Why we are so afraid to offer observations or suggestions is a question that I have constantly. And so we do a lot of feedback training, by the way, but it is one of those things like, why are we so stopped? Why do we feel the need to be so careful and coddle people? I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing that surprises me is the absolute creativity and inspiration of everyone, not just the creative team or the strategy department. It's really everyone there. I think that we're very specific and specialized agency in which we do things different. We don't do advertising like the holding companies do. We're breaking it. And so thus we're bringing people into the company who have an interest in breaking it and innovating, and their side hustles that they have are just magnificent. I'm always just in awe that, wow, on your spare time, you are building video games. Wow, on your spare time, you are doing charity work for underprivileged children. That's I love that.
So could you please just outline a little bit more about both of the sessions that you're going to be presenting at the HR Congress this year?
Yes. So the keynote is really going to be about bringing humanity into the workplace. And that starts with emotional intelligence for me, and also relational intelligence, because the relationships we're building now inside the workplace are crucial and key, I think, more than ever. So I'll walk through steps to bring more EQ, and as I'm calling it, RQ, into your workplace, and how to create cultures of belonging and bravery. So actual steps you can take. You don't need to have a CEO like I do, and I'm very blessed to have someone who's so open to that. But I recognize that that's utopia for most people. So we'll walk through the why and the how to bring this into your culture today. And then in the masterclass, what we're going to do is actually get a little bit more in the dirt there, of doing some role playing with feedback sessions, with interview sessions, with talking about ourselves and breaking down the walls and the barriers to becoming more vulnerable and servant leaders, if you will. And that's what we'll do in the masterclass.
Okay, fantastic. And is there any way that people can get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you or about VaynerMedia?
Yes, please find me on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram, and I absolutely write back to everyone that writes me. It might take me a little bit of time, but I love hearing from people. And so, yeah, please hit me up on any of those platforms.